All right, so we're gonna move on and try to talk about some of these young guys. I'm on with Daniel OYEFUSI from ESPN, the beat reporter for the Cleveland Browns, doing a fantastic job. These young players have been a standout. I know there's been a lot of arguing about the Mason Graham pick, but I feel like he's like Mason Graham's one of his jobs was supposed to be like, hey, let's free up some space so that Miles can eat. Miles had like 10 sacks
And
in
vice
one.
versa,
Yeah.
and vice versa, and vice versa.
Yes.
When Miles gets all the attention, you can
Hmm.
eat. And it's tough. I feel like I think he's also being kind of felt being dealt an unfair hand. Obviously, like when you draft a guy at 5, you expect him to really change the complexion, maybe of your respective unit, or be like a real focal piece. And I think he is, and he will be for years to come. We're maybe not seeing the dominant stretches that we expect from a defensive tackle taken with the number 5 pick, but there was always going to be a little bit of a learning curve because it was a new scheme for him
Hmm.
and whatnot. But I mean, hey, I put it out there. He's 11th in pass. I always have trouble with it because it's a tongue twister. Pass rush win rate amongst defensive tackles. And he's playing on a defense where opposing offenses are getting the ball out so quickly. So he's winning his matchups, but we're not maybe seeing it in the pressures and the sack totals. But he's been really good against the run. And by all accounts, he's had some inconsistent stretches, but he's had some really, really good games as well.
Hmm.
So I think we got to like give some grace for him. Like, has he been dominant? No, but like, very few rookies are dominant in the first half of their rookie season. Like, I think we have to give him some grace. I think he's been a really good pick. And you can play the revisionist history game and say they should have gotten an offensive tackle or they should have gotten a wide receiver. You can, but like, I don't know. I feel like when people are doing that, saying that 8, 9 games of the season, it feels like, being angry just for the sake of being angry and saying, well, because the offense is bad, we should have gotten uh, we should have taken one of those guys where it's like, no, like they had their process and it led them to taking a really good player. It doesn't necessarily mean that, they would have been in a different spot if they took another guy. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of been overthought with Mason through one half of the season.
Yeah, and I think too, defensive tackle is one of those positions, where the transition time is a little bit longer than like a normal, like a running back. You kind of expect if that's like a day one running back coming out the draft, you expect that guy to be good right away, right?
Yeah.
But a defensive tackle, I mean, like it just the guys are just so much bigger in the NFL, so much more athletic in the NFL that you expect there to be a little bit of a growth period. I mean, like even with Miles, that happened where Miles had to really adjust to the NFL. It's not like he ever like struggled, right? He's still Miles Garrett, but there's definitely a difference between how Miles approached the game his first couple of years versus how he approached the game in the middle of his career and how he approaches it now where he looks as good as he's ever been, right? So he honestly looks better than he's ever been. So for Mason, I feel like it's just real premature, a lot of the judgment on him. like
Yeah. And
and
I feel like we've seen it too, like even with some of the later picks, like, oh, like why did you take a linebacker with your first, second round pick? And I'm like, do you know how good Carson has been and how this defense might look without him?
Mhm.
Like honestly, and it's funny because this was the first draft in several years, obviously since they made the Washington trade, that they had significant draft capital, and it really eschewed like what they've been known for before, which is like, all right, we're gonna value positional value, like this felt like a true like best player available board. And I
Mhm.
felt like that wasn't a problem for the Browns this year because they were so bereft of young talent
Mhm.
on cheap, inexpensive deals that I had no problem with them just getting good players. And it's like the first 4 picks, I mean, right? You got Mason, you got Carson, you got Quinshawn, and you got Harold. Those are all 4 legitimate starters. Like, what world are we like yelling for getting and being angry for getting 4 legitimate starters?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah, I think also with the draft, it's one of those things that you always have to judge with time as a factor too. Because I remember when Miles Garrett his rookie year, they were like, "Oh, well, we needed a quarterback, so we really should have took Mitchell Trubisky, who went number 2 that year, right?" Like I remember that being
Yeah.
a whole thing,
I mean,
right?
there
Um,
was two quarterbacks that at the time, probably
I
would have
mean,
took out.
nobody was saying Pat Mahomes until
You're right. No, but you're
2018,
right.
yeah.
But you're
But
right.
yeah,
You're right.
but people will, try to react and say, "Oh, we should have drafted to be better in week 5 of that guy's rookie year." When week
Yeah.
5 of that guy's rookie year is not the goal for that player, right? That goal is for the future. And the question is, did you think getting him makes you better in 5 years than this player? And if the answer to that is yes, then you just got to, eat whatever it is up front so you can
Yeah.
get to that end goal. And I think in 5 years, we'll be happy that we took Mason Graham. We'll be happy that we've taken
It's
Carson
tough right
Schlesinger,
now because
right?
the offense is
Yeah.
like looking the way it is, but
Yeah.
I know definitely like this was like they just wanted to get good players. Like they just wanted to get good players and get players that they thought could contribute in the short term and in the long term because they had just so many holes and they were missing so many
Yeah.
so many at so many spots.
Yeah, and the draft isn't really for like those immediate holes that you have on the roster, right? Like that's what free agency should be for, but they're handicapped in free agency because of, they're dealing with the Watson situation there, or the contract there, at least the fallout of just years of trying to win now, right?
Correct.
So, it's been an interesting offseason for Andrew Berry specifically, right? Because I don't really hear as much noise about people wanting him gone as like Kevin. I think Kevin's the one that you kind of see every Sunday and you can
Yeah.
point to and be like, that's the problem and all that stuff. And coaches just in general take more heat than general managers. But, there has been this criticism of Andrew Berry that's been out there of like, yes, the rookie class is pretty good, and we like that you were able to not have to trade Myles Garrett, and that seems like that's worked out for you. But the state of the offense and the fact that you don't have the horses on the offense, is that something that you can chalk up just to, hey, look, the Deshaun Watson trade, we didn't have first round picks. Something had to suffer. The defense didn't, but the offense did, and that just is what it is? Or is it something where you can point to like, hey, there is a level of incompetence that you think that you see here with Andrew and how he's handled the last couple of years as far as the offense goes?
Well, I'll speak specifically to this past off season, and I'm not saying that it's right, but I just want to like kind of shed light on maybe like the thought process and the way they went about things. So obviously, like you said, you have only so much only so much cap space. You have for the first time in 3 or whatever years, you have significant draft capital. Um, as Andrew Berry has said, like they this was any the kind of thinking was that years back, like they knew that when they, especially when they traded for Deshaun and the way they kind of constructed some of these rosters, the lifespan of the rosters, like they knew that like they were gonna have to there was gonna be like a breaking point or a pivot point, and that was this year. So like you go through last year where the offense is a mess, you kind of morph the offense to kind of fit Deshaun and it doesn't work. And then everyone says, okay, you're going back to this Kevin Stefanski offense. Okay, the offensive line is aging and getting older. But the thinking is that, if you're going back to the offense that Kevin ran, okay, you have these guys who were with him from the beginning when he was there. They can operate the offense. The hope was that DeJuan Jones is going to be your left tackle of the future. Jack Conklin maybe has one more good year. You can squeeze something left out of him. So like there wasn't really like anywhere on the offensive line that they were necessarily, especially because all those guys except for Dewan, were up after this year. There was nowhere where they were gonna like they weren't gonna get like
Mm-hmm.
an
Insert a
offensive
starter.
tackle. Like they weren't gonna start a starter. They weren't gonna insert anybody to like compete for a spot. Like Dewan, like they were gonna give Dewan the opportunity to be that left tackle. Okay, so they signed Cornelius Lucas, Tim Jenkins as some depth. And then again in the draft, like the thought process was again like they knew that they had holes and they were going to use the draft to really fill most of those holes. And that's what they did. I know a lot of people will criticize them for not taking a wide receiver. I wasn't in the draft room. I don't know exactly how the draft board was laid out, but they knew that they had to upgrade the passing game. And in a way they did that. They got Harold Fannin, who, I mean, if they're running Kevin's offense, 12 personnel is your starting personnel. Harold Fanning is a starting pass catcher in your offense. You
Mm-hmm.
add two running backs with, Quinshawn and Dylan Sampson. So like they added guys to this offense. Now, were they going to be able to remodel or remake the entire offense in one year? No, like there's just no way you're going to be able to do that. So you had to, plug in some of these holes as you saw fit, and that's where we saw the additions that they made. Like this is really a 2-year project. Like
Hmm.
the rebuilding and the rebuilding of the foundation of this team is really a 2-year project. And they weren't going to get, a high end wide receiver, two starting offensive tackles, a starting running back and a quarterback in one like they in 1 year off season. They weren't
Yeah.
going to do that. So they plug some holes. We've seen some promising stuff from some of the young guys. Obviously, the quarterback is still the glaring need. And I know people even say, why did they waste 2 picks on a quarterback? Well, I'm not saying it was right or wrong. I mean, I didn't agree with it, but Dylan was their guy, so they took him. And then you have a fifth round pick where, like, I mean, who are they taking in the fifth round that for sure is going to step in and be a contributor? Like that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So they saw. I mean, that was the one time where they actually went back to the old model of the positional value, and they were like, "Hey, well, we got this fifth round pick, and we got this quarterback that is not a fifth round pick. How about we just take him and see what happens?" That was the one time they actually like really went the positional value model. Um, so like again, the rebuilding of this foundation of this offense was not going to be a 1 year fix. It's a multi-year thing. And they have plugged some holes for now. But yeah, we've seen that this offense still needs a lot of more reshaping and retooling to do. Now, whether these people are going to be around to do that next offseason, I don't know. Everything Jimmy Haslam has said on the record over the past almost a year now, has led you to believe that they will. But who knows if the losing continues and the losing continues in the shape and the fashion that it has. If they were losing games 31-30, the offense is scoring points, and you're like, all right, like they're improving,
Hmm.
but we're still losing. We're still 2-6. It's like, all right, well, we're losing these close games, and the offense is improving. Um, that was the main thing that stood out to me from Jimmy. He was like, I don't know how many wins it's going to take. I don't know how many wins I need to see, but we need to be better than 3-14, and we'll know if that's better. Sitting at 2-6 right now, I don't know if I can say that this team is better. Long for in the long term, I don't know that I can say that based off what I've seen. This
Hmm.
season, first half of the season, looks awfully similar to this past season.
Hmm.
Like I feel like I've watched the same game about 15 times this year. 15 times in the past year.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Hey, real quick, we're going to get on with the interview in just a second, but I got to take some time out to thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required. And also, if you're a first time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code worst take. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first time users also receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper. It's it's concerning, right? Like I think it is concerning. We talked about two guys who were in the plans, right, for in the off season. How impactful do you think to how things look right now for the offense has been the injuries to DeJuan Jones and Cedric Tillman?
I can't put too much on that. I think when Dewan was in there, he was struggling himself. He had his ups and downs. He hadn't really, and he even that's kind of been the story since his rookie year. Like he's had some flashes, but we haven't seen that consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I think that he would provide a better option than they've had right now. And I think the past game or so, like Cam Robinson has started to settle in a bit more, and I think having Jack in there consistently, or he came back from his 1 game absence. But I think having him in there, I think those guys will make it like serviceable and functional. Um, but I can't say too much because I don't know. Like again, my thinking, especially of this wide receiver room and this the skill position room, I didn't think too highly of it to begin with. So like obviously like they need all the help that they can get, and I think that set has a skill set that is valuable and that they could use right now. But I don't think that that's really making a big of a difference. I don't think those injuries are. I think if anything, the injuries are just exacerbating like what was already what the holes that we already saw. We already knew that the offensive line was having some issues, but when you have to rotate 5 different offensive tackles, then it's just going to be a complete mess. But I don't think that those injuries have necessarily like made this thing bottom out because we saw it start to bottom out a bit before the injuries.
All right. Appreciate you for being on. We got one more question for you, then I'm gonna let you go. Yo, what is the biggest piece of context to this season that you think is kind of lost in all the discussion right now amongst Browns fans, in your
That is a
opinion?
that is a great question. And I think we kind of spoke about this before, but I think the biggest piece, I mean, I don't know if it's context missing. I think people know it and they've heard it because they were on the record comments from their owner. But nothing, nothing that the ownership said about the upcoming season led you to believe that they expected to win a ton of games.
Mm,
And with that in mind, I was thinking about it. If Jimmy had clean house this past offseason and they brought a new regime in and they had the same exact draft and we're in the same position, he said the same exact things that he said before. Like, he said it's going to take some time. Jimmy said, I want to get multiple draft classes in here. That's
mm-hmm.
what Jimmy said. He's like, we got to get multiple draft classes in to rebuild this foundation. If it was a new regime and this was the case, there would be so much more grace. I think people would still be frustrated, but there'd be like a little bit of an understanding, like, hey, well, we got to get these guys out and get the new regime's players in. Um, and I don't think anybody thought the Browns were gonna compete for a playoff spot or be extremely competitive. But the fact that it's the same regime and it's the same results and it's the same issues, and there still doesn't seem to be any belief that this is gonna change in the near future. I understand that that's where the frustration is coming from. But you told if you told most Browns fans, hey, like the team's gonna be 2-6, enter the bye week, bottom of the AFC North, you'd say like, yeah, that's probably what it is. But it's the manner and the form in which they've lost these games and the product that we've seen that has people so frustrated. But again, if you just go back to what the ownership said, what the GM kind of said, I mean, in a very eloquent way, Andrew Berry said that this is a bit of a reset, rebuild, whatever you want to say, however you want to describe it. That's what
Big
everyone has said. A
strategic pivot.
strategic pivot. I really like that. I like a strategic pivot. Like that's really like a hey man. But
That is a Harvard phrase right there.
that
No,
is that is. I know you're thinking of that one for a minute. But nothing that was messaged to the fans like indicated that this was going to be a very very competitive team.
Mhm.
But again, I understand where the fan frustration kicks in when we're seeing the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Do you think like internally they kind of view it like that, where it's like, okay, the Watson, we tried to win with the Watson block. That didn't work. We're almost like resetting and treating it as if
Jimmy,
this is just a
Jimmy
new.
literally, Jimmy's comments were literally like when I was sitting like right next to D Haslam, D Haslam when Jimmy said that, and like I was like, okay, they're literally like clean slate. I viewed it as like we're literally treating this like this is a new regime. Like, okay, we've had these guys
Mm,
in here for 5, 6 years, but this is literally a clean slate. Like you're good, you're absolved of it. So in my mind, it was like, all right, well, this upcoming year is literally like that's your year zero. That's your
mm,
year zero, where you start
it's
to
a
get some new
new
guys.
two,
You
3 year
start to get
window.
exactly that's how I viewed it. So that's why like as the losing is piling up, I'm like, all right, well, I'm not surprised. Did I think that they were going to be a little more competitive, especially on offense? Yes, but like that's not a surprise, and that's why it's interesting. Like externally, outwardly, nationally, there really hasn't been that type of noise about
Mm.
Kevin's job security. Now, who knows what Jimmy's thinking internally or what the conversations they're having internally. But I think that, like, again, when you make those types of comments, it's kind of messaged that you're going to give, and he said that we're going to give these guys time, which is why I keep on saying if they were to make unless this thing really bottomed out the second half of the year or it continued and Jimmy was like, all right, well, this is just like at some point we have to make a change for the sake of making a change. All right. But like that's why I still to this day would be surprised if they made a change because that would just go fly completely in the opposite way of everything that Jimmy has said since whenever that was at the owners' meetings. I guess that was late March or whatever it was that completely fly in the opposite direction of what he said. He does not have to say that. Like he's the owner. He does not have to say we're going to give them time. I take responsibility for that trade. Like he doesn't have to say all that stuff publicly and
Hmm.
on the record, but he has, and that is very, very striking to me.
Yeah, it's also the same time James Gladstone is confirmed where they start talking about that trade, right? The trade back from 2 to 5
Jimmy signed
with
off on
Cleveland.
that trade. Jimmy said,
Yeah.
I signed off on that trade. I
Yeah.
don't think that I was gonna say, I don't think he signs off on that trade if these guys are in a must-win situation. No, like you take the unicorn at number two that is gonna make an impact on both sides of the ball where you need it.
Hmm.
And you don't I don't think Jimmy signs off on that trade if in his mind, at least at that moment, he's thinking like, okay, these guys are clear for this 2025 season.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me, Daniel. Anywhere else they can find you other than like, sometimes on NFL Live, just casually.
I mean, that's every once in a while, but no,
I think
usually
I saw
social
Sports Center
media.
one time. Yeah.
Hey, I'm just doing what they tell me, man. I'm a company man. They want me on Sports Center. I show up on Sports Center. I do what they
Yeah.
tell me.
You sound like they made you hostage to be on Sports Center. Like, oh man, I guess I'll be on Sports Center. All right, boss. I guess I'll be there.
Got no
But
trust, shucks. I guess I will.
Because I'll be on, one of the most prestigious programs in America. Appreciate you for being on. Thank you for joining us. Great information as always. But everybody else, y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.